I'm William A. Lester, Jr., Professor Emeritus, University of California, Berkeley, Department of Chemistry. Clean chemistry, as it's been described at some point. Born and raised on the south side of Chicago, went to public schools there. And one aspect of that Chicago upbringing is the dealing with segregation in the city. That it was the case that we moved up to a project. I have 3 sisters. And at one point we were in a 2-bedroom apartment closer into the downtown area. And the youngest sister was to be brought home by my mother from the hospital. And it had been determined clearly that we needed 3 bedrooms. And as I often say, we moved up to a project. This was Princeton Park Homes, built at the end of WW2, 1945 or so. And this project fed black students into the area high school for the first time. I was a part of the 2nd or 3rd cadre of students from Princeton Park. To give you some sense of the nature of the racial makeup, in my graduating class, 8 black students out of 365. We're talking south side of Chicago. Well, I did well in high school academically. However, when I graduated, though I had applied to area 4-year institutions, I received scholarships at none of the good quality institutions. However, there had been a scholarship established by a librarian in previous years to the University of Chicago. And in my class, 3 of us were awarded the scholarship. It had been dormant for a number of years, not used. There was a white girl, white guy, and myself. After a year at the University of Chicago, the white girl decided there was no social life and went to the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. The white guy wanted to be an actor and went off to UCLA. But for me, this was the only game in town. The scholarship was called the Victoria Adams Scholarship. And it was to an institution which at that time cost $690 for the academic year. Sounds like a crazy figure, yes, but far more expensive than Dad could afford, who was in the post office. He was a mail carrier. He had been successful in passing the civil service exam during the Depression, and so we were a solid lower middle class from that point on. In any event, the University of Chicago is where I went to undergrad, majored in chemistry, but I should add a point here that during my senior year, friends said that they were hiring over at the University of Chicago. This was before I was awarded the scholarship. And so at the employment office, they said, well, what can you do? Can you type? I said, I just finished my junior year, got a little certificate for typing. So they gave me a test on the spot. I did 32 words a minute, but no mistakes. They said, you're slow, but you're accurate. We have 2 jobs, cleaning monkey cages in a medical school at 88 cents an hour, or typing in the physics department at $1.09 an hour. So off I go to physics. Now the machine for typing that they had was an electric one of the first ones, which had, and this was before Selectric, by the way, and it had interchangeable keys and allowed one to put in the Greek alphabet and mathematical symbols. So it was a real exposure. In addition, because of the head of this laboratory, the Laboratory of Molecular Structure and Spectra, headed by a man by the name of Robert Mulliken, who some 15 years or so later won the Nobel Prize in physics. In any event, undergrad, University of Chicago, finished up because I wanted to be a chemist. By the way, a thought which came up first because of radio, DuPont's commercial, better things for better living through chemistry. This intrigued me. Chemistry in high school, I did very well. I would win competitions where we would line up like spelling bees on respective sides of the room and answer questions provided by the instructor in the course. And I used to win some of these. In any event, at the University of Chicago, completing the program, applying to graduate schools to pursue a doctorate, I was admitted to none. Now I should add that my GPA when I finished was slightly below a B average, but I was known on campus. I had set the scoring record in basketball twice. And it was the case that I was awarded my last year the Amos Alonzo Stagg Medal for academics, citizenship, and athletics. Furthermore, a big surprise was being selected as the Man of the Year for 1957 for the University of Chicago. Nevertheless, admitted to none of the graduate schools I applied to pursue a doctorate in chemistry. The head of chemistry at the University of Chicago at that time, a man whose name escapes me at the moment, probably will come back to me, said, "Lester, we'll let you do a master's here." Now, the tradition was that you had to go elsewhere for a doctorate. And so I did a master's at the University of Chicago. Did a master's project with a new fresh-faced professor from the Harvard Society of Fellows by the name of Stuart Rice. He facilitated my getting into Washington University in St. Louis. But I should add that there was a postdoctoral associate associated with Mulliken's lab by the name of Bernard Ransel, who had said, you know, if you want to pursue molecular quantum mechanics, which was my goal after the exposure at LMSS, Laboratory of Molecular Structure and Spectra, which was in the physics department, then I would have to change my major. I would have had to change my major, which I did not want to do. And Ransel's PhD was in chemistry. He said, if you want a PhD in molecular quantum mechanics in chemistry, you can go where I went, which was the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. So I applied for there. Now, I should add, remember I talked about Washington University in St. Louis. That admission there had been facilitated by this Professor Stuart Rice. I got the letter from Washington University and accepted it, only to find out after the deadline that I had been accepted at the Catholic University of America as well. Well, that letter had gone to Dr. William A. Lester, head of student health at the University of Chicago. What a coincidence, can you believe it? In any event, off to Washington University, did work towards a PhD there. They decided my work was not at the level that they desired, and I had a master's, and so that was that. So I went to 3 companies in St. Louis at that time: Monsanto, Mallinckrodt, and Tri-City Oil. And even though I had a master's and a year beyond that in study, none of these companies would hire me. So I got in touch with Catholic University and asked about going there. They said, yes, come. And so I loaded up my by then wife, Rochelle, and we got married, I should mention, at Christmas of that academic year at Washington University in St. Louis. Why? Because before I left, she said, well, what about me? And I said, sweetheart, all I have is a teaching assistantship. I can't afford to support a wife. She said, I'll work. Now, she had gotten her bachelor's from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Quick calculation says, yeah, we can make it on that basis. But I should add that after 3 months, she was pregnant. And so there we were with this situation, progressing on to the end of the academic year, no job, but then one of the professors in the chemistry department, a man by the name of Professor Lindsay Helmholtz, knowing my situation in terms of job hunting, said, Lester, you can work for me for this summer. Oh, okay, glad to do that. I have some income, because I couldn't find a job in chemistry in St. Louis at that time. Well, this was an experimental job, even though he did theory and experiment. And this was to seed, put into crystals, something called a dopant. And in this case, manganese, to lead to an electron spin resonance signal. And I won't go any further than that. We're getting a little technical. But in any event, one did this experiment in a hood because you were precipitating these crystals with dopant, you hoped, from hydrogen fluoride, the most corrosive acid you can find, which etches glass. In any event, for an entire summer, I was not successful in getting a signal. And so this firm further convinced me that, well, doing experiments is fine for some other people, but not something that I particularly wanted to pursue. Passed my prelims and so forth at Catholic University, but they paid such a limited amount of money that I got in touch with a guy at Chicago who had recommended Catholic and said, man, I need some money. He suggested going out to the National Bureau of Standards and contacting this colleague that he knew because they had summer internships. Went out there, he brought me on board. That summer, I earned some good money, went back to campus, satisfied final campus requirements. He got in touch the following spring, said, I'd like to have to come out again. By this time, my dear daughter, Allison, had arrived. So here I have dear son, Bill, William A. Lester III, daughter, Allison. And so I went in to ask my research advisor, Professor Virginia Griffin, one of the few women internationally in theoretical chemistry. And she said to me, Lester, what do you want to do? Make a living or get an education? I said, I need to do both. This was my goal. A moment that made a big break in my career was when I was hired by IBM Research in San Jose, California in 1968. I had gone out to California with the family that spring of '68, to give a talk at an American Physical Society meeting in Berkeley, and 2 weeks later, an American Chemical Society meeting in San Francisco. And the weekend between, I thought I would visit IBM Research in San Jose because many people, folks who were graduate students and postdoctoral associates at the University of Chicago at the Laboratory of Molecular Structure and Spectra, had been hired there. Furthermore, the head of the group called Large Scale Scientific Computations, a man by the name of Enrico Clementi, I had gotten to know because he had been a candidate for a position at Wisconsin. During the period, I was assistant director of the institute and a lecturer in the chemistry department. So I visited him one day in between these two meetings, borrowed my brother-in-law, Jim Wiley's car, Volkswagen Beetle, drove down there, chatted with Clementi, and he said, I'd like you to meet someone. And so he took me down the hall and introduced me to a man by the name of Eschenfelder. He was director of the laboratory. And during the course of our interaction with Eschenfelder, Clementi said, I'm going to hire this guy. And so when that meeting was over, we come out and I said, well, what are you talking about? You're going to hire me. He said, I know your work from when I was a candidate for the position at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I said, okay. And then, having had the experience of arriving in California from cold, dank Madison, and furthermore, with an income increase of $5,000 in 1968, going from $13,500 to $18,500, and with all the computer time I needed to do the work I wanted to do, it was an absolute yes. This was a critical juncture in terms of the evolution of my career. Well, to some extent, one might say that my crowning achievement was selection as the director of the National Resource for Computation and Chemistry, an organization created by the National Academy of Sciences in 1977, arising out of two studies of the National Academy of Sciences as to the concept, a study, one done in 1963 and the other done in the early 70s, which said an organization should be created to assist chemists in the use of computers. Now, mind you, I'd been at IBM for quite some time. That's quite some time, being from 68 to 77. I'd been a manager at the IBM Research Laboratory. I had been a member of the technical planning staff at Yorktown Heights, New York, on the staff of the vice president and director of research. And so it was something that I felt my background eminently qualified me for, and I was selected. At a time, I should add, when you ask a chemist about the use of computers, 9 times out of 10 they said, oh, if I have a problem, I'll ask a good chemist. So it was building an understanding of the role that computation could play in chemistry. And as a matter of fact, one of the charges to the organization for me to assist with was to run workshops in which we would ask the question, how can computation assist the advancement of this subdiscipline of chemistry? In terms of personal inspiration, that I must harken back the guidance that my father provided. Two aspects which have been critical in my thinking about things. And one arose out of a meeting my senior year of high school when Dad took me to meet with a medical doctor, a pharmacist, and I can't recall the third person, and to discuss what I wanted to do. And by the way, by this point, I had decided I wanted to be a research chemist. And so the question was asked, what do you mean? What would you do? You mean medical doctor? No, not medical doctor. And so there was puzzlement among this group of educated folks. At the end of this session, we were going back home, and Dad said, son, do whatever you want to do. I know too many medical doctors who go to the bar at 5 o'clock because they have not been happy with what they've been doing during the day. So the message of do whatever you want to do was critical. The other thing he said, which was also critical, he said, you can do anything in life that you put your mind to. And I think that was profound, and I mention that now for anyone looking at this. That's critical. If you put your mind to it, you don't know what kind of obstacles you might encounter, but if you put your mind to it, you will find a way. Well, telling you about what, in terms of personal achievement, there's no question about the fact that my success in basketball in undergraduate school, I had no anticipation for. I loved the game. And as a matter of fact, I became a starter at the University of Chicago the second game of my freshman year. Now, mind you, Chicago was not an athletic institution. The basketball team had a record of 1 win and 47 losses over the previous 3 years. My class came in, we won half our games. And my standard joke was we didn't have to compute the trajectory before we shot the ball. So setting a scoring record twice, breaking my own record, and then doing that a second time, and that record lasting until the early 2000s, with 2 other records I set still holding. That is, most field goals in a game, 19, and season average, 25 and a half, are still valid. Family was always very supportive. I lost my mother at the end of my first year of undergrad. She died early. She was only 39, and sorely missed by all of us, the siblings. And then I married this wonderful lady, maiden name Rochelle Reed, the mother of my 2 children, Bill and Allison, who, upon reflecting on my life, was wonderful. We enjoyed 50 years of marriage before she passed from cancer. Admittedly, all relationships have their ups and downs. I call it the great sine wave of life. But she made so many things happen. And this is something that I want my grandsons to understand and appreciate, the importance that she had in my life. If I were to give a piece of advice to a young person today, that advice would echo what I just said a few moments ago. Namely, to believe in yourself in terms of what you have set your mind to do, and to recognize that you must persevere to achieve the things you want to accomplish in this life, notwithstanding obstacles and barriers that might arise along the way. I would like to be remembered as a good guy who thought about others. I would like to be a good guy who thought about others and did what he could to assist the scene.